Hey, Dean here. Welcome back to the Secret Underground Lair. Okay, we got our top hat made in the last video. Here, this time, we're going to make the cone. So, as each of these cones fit on top of one another, they overlap a little bit. And I've observed that the overlap, you can see that we've got 3 rings here that provide some structural integrity to the pot. So I can cut off this pot just above that line. And I'm going to do that with each of the pots. That'll give a little bit more structural integrity at the bottom of the pot. So we'll cut it off there. And then that gives us a good about an inch where we can put glue to hold the thing together. And of course a bead of silicone around there just to seal it as well. Just using a utility knife, I can penetrate the pot. Now I should just be able to make a cut along the edge here. I see that it is a little brittle, so I'm going to have to be careful with this. Yep, interesting. This utility knife is not the tool to use here. I'm going to use a saw because I can see that I am going to break that pot. My cut is not going to be clean. So we'll use another method. That's why I started with one of the smaller ones. It's cheaper. I mean, I don't want to waste $2. Just did a little quick test cut with my oscillating saw. This seems to be doing a trick, so I'll carry on with this. What I've run into on the bottom of the pot are these little standoffs. So I've run into one of the standoffs. So I'm just going to try and skirt around that. Okay. That's how we're going to make a cone. I'll go through the same process on the other 3 pots that I've got here. Come back when that's done. So there's the cone, all the pieces cut out of it. I'm just going to, at this point, clean up the edges from the cut. You can see we're a little bit ragged from the saw, so we'll give that a little bit of a sand, and then we'll set the pieces in place, lining up for glue. Another thing I should just point out about this dust collector. Okay, this isn't going to be a top of the line dust collector by any stretch of the imagination. I don't hold any hope out for that. But it's better than what I've got, which is nothing. So if it can collect a little bit of dust, that's better than what I've been doing. Okay, all sanded, ready for some glue. And I'm going to start at the small end to do glue and silicone, so we'll see how this all works. I put a band of masking tape around the pot here just because it's easy to write on the masking tape. That serves no purpose other than to show up a marking. It's harder to write on this surface. This surface I can write on fine with a pencil. So I've marked 4 holes on here, or 4 spots on here, and indicated this is my primary spot. So I'm going to put I'm going to put the first part of the glue on both of these pieces. I need to apply that first. So I'll do that in these 4 spots. So I've marked 4 spots all around the pot. And then as soon as that's dry, I'll take the glue itself and I'll put a daub of glue on, a fairly heavy daub of glue on each of these 4 spots. And then setting it down, I can match up the spots where I have the primer and the glue, and then just set that down and we should get an instant bond. So let me get the glue in place. Yeah, the word I was looking for is the activator. So you apply the activator first on both surfaces with this glue. If I can get the package open. So this glue comes with an activator in a pen, which kind of just looks like a felt tip marker. So they say to apply that to both surfaces. By the way, you may notice that I also put a line, pencil line all around. That's where the pot comes down onto. That doesn't sound grammatically correct, but I hope you get what I mean. Doesn't take long for that activator to set. Okay, and the activator here is dry. You say give it 60 seconds, so cue the Jeopardy theme music. And the moment of truth. Yep, that's instant. There's not a lot of opportunity to adjust that once you've got it set in place. How about that? Okay, good. The right glue for the job. So I'll go through the same process with the other pots. We'll get them all glued together. And there's our Cyclone, all glued up. Next step, I'll put some silicone around each of these edges here just to seal the buckets permanently. Let's start down at the small end. That's been glued the longest. It's a pretty messy job. This is the first bit. Go to the second one. All right, and there's our second joint, sealed up. And our third joint sealed up. I'm barely going to have enough to do the fourth joint. This, for your information, this is 82.8 milliliters of silicone, so that's enough to do 5 pots. And there we have our last joint. The white on white doesn't show up very well on the camera, but that seems to have us sealed up pretty well. And bringing back our hat, what I'll do now is mark the holes for the screws, and I'll put some screws in here. And of course we'll need to seal all around here as well. I might hold off on that sealing though until we have our bucket in place. We'll need a bottom hat and the bucket. Okay, just to kind of give you an idea of how this is all going to fit together, I put in the pipe. This is just a loose fit into the hat. This will extend down into the cone. So our cone, now freshly assembled, will slip on here. So this our exhaust pipe from the cone going to the blower will be extending down into the cone about 10 inches. So that sits on there like that. As the pipe comes out the top of the cone, it's going to run through an elbow into the blower. The blower, of course, I have things tilted on its side, but the blower will sit like this, exhausting from here into a another filter that'll get rid of the very fine particles. One of the viewers commented I should be using a Merv 11, so thank you very much for that tip. I appreciate it. And yeah, so this is kind of how we're getting all the bits assembled. There'll be some sealing to do, of course. We'll want to run silicone all around this pipe here. Make sure that that is sealed. I probably won't be sealing up these PVC connections, at least not yet anyway, just in case I want to move them around a bit yet. We're getting close. So the last little piece of the puzzle in the dust collector, well maybe the second last, is what's the bucket going to be? Well, it's going to be this lovely Rubbermaid Roughneck 20-gallon garbage can. This garbage can was actually here in the house when we bought the house, so yeah, didn't throw it out. I thought, hey, I might be able to use that, and what do you know, you can use it. So we're going to make a hat for this. I want to find a way that I can clamp it down to seal it, so there'll probably be a little bit of fiddling and maybe a layer of silicone on here to help seal that bucket as it gets clamped down. And of course the cone, we'll find a way. You can't see that, I'm off camera, hang on. So we'll find a way to set the cone on the top like that. So I have some aspenite sheathing here, which I'm going to use for the top of the bucket. The top of the bucket, what I've got here is a diameter, the outside diameter is 19.5 inches. So a little bit less than that, probably 19 3/8, but I'm going to go 19.5. So I'll cut a circle 19.5 out of here. Then the inside diameter is 18 inches. So I have a second piece of sheathing where I'll cut an 18-inch circle out of here, glue these two pieces together. That will become the lid that can sit inside flush, and then we'll find a way to clamp it down tight onto the top of the bucket to make a seal. And then of course put a hole in the middle where we can place the cone, the Cyclone. So I'll mark out those holes, go over the bandsaw, and we'll try and cut that out. So I marked out the hole on the first piece. You can see this is going to be for the inside circumference. And I thought, well, this is a pretty big piece. I wonder if I could get the second piece, 19 3/4 or 19.5 cut out of that. But not quite. You can see I just have a little bit of overlap here. So I can't get both pieces out of one of these pieces of wood. So I shall take it out of the second piece. So this piece is going to be too big to fit on the bandsaw, obviously. So I'm going to run it through the table saw, cut off this strip, cut off this, well, this first, then that. Then I'll probably just take off a couple corners just so that it can flow through the bandsaw a little bit better. I'll do that with both of the pieces where we're cutting these circles. right, we're good to go. I could also cut circles on the table saw. There's videos online about how to do that. But I do have a jig set for the bandsaw, so I'll just go over there and do that there. So this is the circle cutting jig that I use for the bandsaw. Got a pin here, so the piece will sit on there and pivot around that pin. And then I've got markings for, here's the marking for a 6-inch radius, a 7-inch radius. I got a 9-inch and a 9 3/4. And the other thing that I've done is I've made this a little bit wider here at that end so that I can put the blade on the inside of the 9-inch or the outside of the 9-inch. So inside of the line gives me a perfect hole, outside of the line gives me a perfect cutout. So I'm going to set this for a perfect cutout. So I'm going to be on that side of the line. I want the hole to be exactly the right size. So let me get the piece on here. All right, so that's the outer side. It sits on top of the can. This one will be fitting inside the can. I'm going to make a little adjustment, bring him in just a little bit. I'll come back when that's done. Okay, so it turns out my 18-inch measurement was wrong. It's actually off by about 1/8, 17 7/8. So I readjusted the saw. I'm going to go through one more time. That's better. That's the fit we're looking for. So the next step in this operation will be to glue these two pieces together like this. Then they can fit directly onto the lid of the pail. We have a nice lip here that'll keep it exactly centered, and ultimately we'll be running a bead of silicone through here that will kind of let set loosely so that it can form a vacuum seal. I have to think about how to do that well. Maybe put some Vaseline on the top of the pail as we set this on with a bead of silicone around it. And we'll get to that bridge cross that bridge when we get to it. So here's our circles that we cut out. These are just pieces of exterior siding you can get for a shed or a project pick up from your home building store. So here's our larger circle that represents the top. This is the smaller circle that goes on the inside of the can. I have a hole that we used to center the piece on the table saw, on the bandsaw. So I can use that hole now to line up both pieces, and I'll put some glue on there and glue these two together. That'll give us a piece that's 3/4 of an inch thick. I'm going to show you a little thing I got here. So I have a little drawer here that I use to keep my glue and stains and paint. And I have insulated it. And the reason I did that is I have I live in Canada and I don't like to keep my shop heated all the time for extended periods of time. But of course, that means that the glue and other things, they could potentially freeze or get to a point close to freezing. So I have a little Arduino in here powering up a little heated bed inside the drawer, running off a power supply. It came off a computer. And that's flashing the ambient temperature of the room and the temperature of the box and the temperature of the heating element. So that's kind of what it's cycling through. So if you'd like to see a video on how I built that and what that's all about, please let me know in the comments and maybe we can do a video on that one. Put a little bit more glue just around the very edge. I'm more concerned about it grabbing around the edge than the middle because we're going to cut that a hole out in the middle. We are perfectly centered. So let's clamp it up. All right, we'll leave that to set for a little while. All right, our top for the dust bin, for the dust collector, has been assembled. The glue is set up and dried. So I need to cut a hole here that the bottom of the cone will go through. So I'm going to make a 5-inch hole, and I'm using the router table to do that. So I'm all set up. I'll just turn on the router and we'll let her rip. This will be a 2-pass cut. I'll just raise the bits more. And we'll penetrate. This shop could sure use a dust collection system. So there's our hole. That should be suitable for a Cyclone. There we go. How about that? I like it. So I'm going to reach out to you guys, get some advice. You can see on this top part of the Cyclone here, this last pot that I put on, curves in as it gets to the bottom of the, well, in this case, the top of the pot. Now when I put our lid on, This is the lid of the bucket. It protrudes through, which is what I was shooting for, but I'm wondering if I should be cutting that off so that there's less of a curve in. I'm wondering how that will affect dust flow. Give me your thoughts and comments, thoughts in the comments on this one, and maybe we'll make some adjustment. But I got that. That's kind of how I was thinking of it for now. If I need to make this a bigger hole, I could probably do that, but for now, that's what I'm going to go with. Now I just need a way to secure that into the top, so we'll think about that next. So here is the hat sitting on top of the Cyclone, sitting on top of the bucket. So I am considering now a mechanism for attaching the whole business, the Cyclone and the bucket together. It's something like this. So if I put maybe 4 of those all the way down, that will keep the cone, the hat, and the lid of the bucket all together. And I might be able to use these pieces here somehow to connect to the blower. So that's the thought du jour. I'm going to think about that for a little bit. That'll be the next step. So thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe.